Hey everyone, welcome to another Turning the Tide video. Today I'm joined by another very special guest. She's part of the Women's Divers Hall of Fame and founded People of the Water. Please welcome shark conservationist Cristina Zenato. Hi Cristina, how are you?
Hi, Cameron. I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you. So let's just get started with your specialty. You've been diving with sharks for over 25 years. What got you started?
Um, Physically, I started the moment I arrived here in the Bahamas. I always wanted to be a scuba diver. I had the opportunity to take a course, and the five destinations I picked from my country, which is Italy, were at the time not available. So the travel agency, we're talking about 1994 here, they actually redirected me to the Bahamas, which was not a traditional destination for Italian people for scuba diving. But when I arrived here, I found a very good instructor, and I also found that they were already diving with sharks through my mentor, Ben Rose, who would become my mentor. So it was very interesting. The moment I became a scuba diver, I actually made a life choice to change everything to then continue scuba diving and being with sharks. It had been a childhood dream, and I was since 8 years old to want to be in the water with sharks. Sometimes we're taught by the adult world to put away the dreams and to go for the real thing. And I'm saying the real thing in quote unquote. So it's very unique that in a twists and turns and all these coincidences, I actually landed on what was my childhood dream.
That's a very inspirational story, and you're right, a lot of times that gets lost. What kept you driven in coming back for your dream?
Once I entered the ocean, I found that I had a passion and borderline obsession with it. I remember from the dives, I will be coming up and doing my safety stop. You have to sit there a few minutes. And I remember looking at the ocean below me, and I could feel my heart wanted to pull out of my chest. And I remember waving. I used to wave down at the ocean. And I was so upset when I had to surface. So it was very easy to stay following that kind of passion. To then continue through the 26 years, which were not always the easiest years, it was the pull that I have towards the ocean, the sharks, and everything else that I found beyond that, the caves, the exploration, um, and how my life felt every moment I woke up. When I woke up in the morning, that feeling, when I wake up in the morning, that feeling is what gets me going. It's a mix. I was trying to explain this to someone yesterday. It's a mix between basically deciding what is the investment that you want to put in, so the cost, and then the effect of what you receive. And for me, the cost so far is way less than the effect. So the price tag that I'm paying for this is still absolutely worth it. And I think that's what people should consider: is what is your price tag, and is it worth it? And if it's worth it, then definitely you need to go for it.
Absolutely. And like you mentioned, you've been diving for over 26 years. And a lot of that diving, as I understand it, has been done with Caribbean reef sharks. How have you seen them change over time?
Well, the sharks haven't changed much. I think the one that has changed is me in relationship to them. At first, when I went in the water with sharks, it was primarily about me and the experience with the sharks. But I also didn't have that understanding and knowledge of reading their body language and their reactions to my presence and the influences of nature. So I think I have changed into my relationship with them by learning more and more to listen to them as creatures. And then obviously I learn more about sharks in general. I travel to learn about other sharks, the fleet of sharks, the shark conservation, which is, funny enough, something that was not very um, evident here, because the Bahamas always had a very healthy, rich shark population, with a local population, human population that doesn't feed nor fish on sharks. So only after a few years of working with sharks, I realized actually they were very much endangered. As for changing, they haven't really changed. The sharks have remained more or less the same. I think as I learn more about them, they relax more and more around me, and we've been able to create a little bit of what is considered a relationship.
I watched one of your interviews, and you said that you are able to recognize the sharks you're diving with, and they recognize you too. So you've really been able to develop a relationship with them over time.
Yes, well, remember, sharks have 8 senses, and they do communicate amongst themselves through body language, through movement, through also secretions of hormones and scents. So I do believe they use the same criteria also to, in a certain way, recognize me. So how I move through the water, how my heart is beating, how I smell that day. Because as divers, we forget that actually scent is a huge sense for sharks, right? We can't smell, we have the nose here, and we forget that actually they can smell us. So they can smell all, like maybe if we're stressed or tired. And our traditional smell, what is the basic one of skin smell that we know also attracts humans to each other. So as I recognize them, I'm pretty sure how, with their high sensory system, they can definitely recognize me.
What have you learned about their roles in their community?
So sharks interact within their community like most predators do, which is coexistence. They are swimming around schools of fish, which might eventually become their prey, but they don't go around with indiscriminate behavior, biting and eating everything. Right. So this is one of the behaviors that when I look at them, I think as humans we should do that. Unfortunately, we don't have that. We usually, if we find something, we'll harvest to its decimation. I've seen that before. People find 10 lobsters, but there's 2 of them. It's not that they're going to fish 2 lobsters. They're going to take all 10 lobsters, just to give you an example. I've seen that through my childhood. I've seen that through, being here. So that is one, I think, the most beautiful aspect of sharks. But then they're also balance keepers. So they are going to eat those animals that are injured, sick, dying, dead, decaying, and they basically clean up the environment, allowing then everyone that is involved into this it's a very intricate web. It's not just a pyramid, it's a very much a web. So you can have sharks here and sharks here and sharks here, and then they eat at all these different levels. They're also mesoteric feeders, not just apex predators. And they contribute to keeping the balance and everything in there. What we don't know as humans is how of a detriment is going to be to the web the moment we remove one of those pieces. And I hope we never have to find out, because I'm pretty sure it will throw out of balance extremely at what we consider granted. And there's very good examples out there on land and few on the water where the introduction or the elimination of a species absolutely changes the entire dynamic. The Yosemite Park is one of the examples that I encourage people to read about, how the introduction of wolves back in the Yosemite Park saved the river. And it's just like, say what? But it's so incredible, right? You start reading this paper, there are scientific papers on how these wolves' reintroduction saved the river and the flooding and the banks.
Absolutely. It's really wild stuff to see everything so connected.
It is very much interconnected. It's one of the things we forget is one of the things I try to teach, no matter where you are, even in New York City, whatever you do that ends up somewhere on the ground into a drain on the road where it rains and you see all the dirt water from the oil from the cars and the fuel and all of that, somewhere, somehow it will make its way to the ocean and will affect the ecosystems. So it doesn't matter where you are. When it flows through everything and will eventually affect us. And is demonstrated by the quality of the water, depending on which cities we're talking about.